All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we're going to now get into talking about the Falcons Buccaneers game that's coming up this Sunday. It's a big matchup. It's a rematch from a couple weeks ago when the Falcons won in overtime. Kirk Cousins threw for over 500 yards. They won 36-30. And both teams are coming off of losses. The Falcons losing 34-14 to the Seahawks. Buccaneers losing on Monday to the Ravens 41-31. And they lost both of their top wide receivers in that game. So it's going to be a little bit different than the last time these two teams met. And it's weird. This division is strange. And when you see what the Panthers are doing, I mean, they got no chance right now. The Saints dealing with all of their injuries. It's going to come down to these two teams. And I know that, again, the Buccaneers are down their top two wide receivers, but I still think that they can win this game because the Falcons just, for some reason, they've been inconsistent. And, you thought that this offense turned the corner when they won the overtime game against the Buccaneers. But, against the Panthers, they really relied upon the running game. I mean, Kirk Cousins was all right, but, again, they relied upon the running game. And then this past week, I don't know what happened. Kirk Cousins threw 3 interceptions, and the defense got shredded by Geno Smith and the Seahawks offense. Well, I mean, the defense really hasn't been great this year, but, yeah, it's just the Falcons are a weird team. And, you would have thought that by now they would have figured it out, but it's not the case. This is a huge game coming up. Both teams are 4-3 on the year. I think, in my opinion, this is a bigger game for the Bucs because I did bring up what they got coming up on the schedule. They already lost to the Ravens, and I think if Mike Evans and Chris Godwin don't get hurt, I mean, this game definitely would have been different. Although the Bucs are dealing with their own injuries on defense as well. The defense has not played well the last couple of weeks. I know against the Saints, I mean, Baker kind of, caused some of the points to be scored for the Saints just because, he turned the ball over a handful of times. But yeah, against the Falcons, they weren't great in Week 5. They shut the Saints out in the second half. So yeah, they didn't have a good first half. They didn't have a good second quarter, the Bucs as a team. But they shut them down in the second half, and then against the Ravens had their way. Lamar Jackson had 5 touchdowns. Derrick Henry ran all over them in the second half. So yeah, it hasn't been good for the Bucs defense. And now you're going up against the Falcons again. Now it's a road game for the Falcons. So at least you're going to be at home. But the following week, you take on the Chiefs in Arrowhead, which is probably going to be a loss, especially when you're down your 2 wideouts. And then you got the 49ers after that, which, the 49ers have their own problems, but I kind of expect the 49ers to win. So the Bucs are going to have to rely upon their running game, I think. You're going to see that 3-headed monster that they've been talking about with Sean Tucker, Rashad White, Bucky Irving. Those guys are going to have to, step up their game because they're shorthanded right now. And it's the same thing that goes with the other receivers. Jalen McMillan, who goes from being the number 3 wide receiver to, I guess, the number 1 receiver. Sterling Shepard, Trey Palmer. Those guys are going to have to step up. Cade Otton, he was making plays for them on Monday against the Ravens. Some tough catches. Those guys are going to have to step up. And like I said, I do think this is still a winnable game for the Bucs because the Falcons have not been great. They've been inconsistent. And just to kind of go through the league rankings for these teams. So, in terms of passing yards per game, they're both top 10. Baker Mayfield's had a good year, although he's been turning the ball over a decent amount recently. But he has 18 touchdowns right now to 7 picks, which is good. Both quarterbacks have around 1,800 yards passing. Kirk Cousins has 8 less touchdowns. He has 10 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. But yeah, both teams are top 10 or top 5 in passing yards. The Bucs are 8th in rushing yards per game, averaging 135.1. And yeah, they're going to have to lean on that in this game coming up. The Falcons are 16th They're averaging 119.6 points per game. And then points per game, the Bucs are 4th, and the Falcons are 15th. They're averaging 23.3 points per game. And then in terms of their defense, Bucs defense is 29th against the pass. I mean, you saw that. Lamar Jackson carved them up. And Kirk Cousins, of course, threw for 500 yards against them. I don't expect him to do that in this game, but I do expect him to play well, or at least play better than how he did against the Seahawks. And the Falcons' defense is actually 9th against the pass. They're giving up an average of 205.4, but they did not play well against Geno Smith and the Seahawks. And then rushing yards, I mean, both teams are, more towards, the other half of the league. So the Bucs are 19th against the run, and the Falcons are 24th. So there's definitely going to be both teams are going to be leaning on the run at certain points. And then points allowed, Bucs defense is 28th, Falcons defense is 22 or 22nd. So yeah, I mean, I expect this to be competitive. I don't want to take the Falcons because I said that both teams would split against each other, but I mean the Bucs are down their top 2 wideouts, and so it's really tough. The other receivers are going to have to step up, and I went over both teams' schedules, and the Bucs do have some winnable games coming up after the tough stretch. They still got the Panthers twice. They got the Giants in there. I mean, you're going to get Mike Evans back eventually. It's just right now you're just going to have to, tread some water. And that's why, again, losing that game on Thursday night a couple weeks ago, that was huge because, you win that game, you could afford to drop some of these games coming up. And look, I don't think the Falcons are going to run away with the division. I think they'll keep it close. It's just, this is a very important game for the Buccaneers. And you saw how Baker Mayfield struggled against the Ravens after Mike Evans got hurt. So, and this Falcons defense is not as good as the Ravens. So, I think Baker is still going to find a way to play well. He's got to limit the turnovers, though. Got to make better decisions. It's going to be tough. They got to find a way. The defense for the Bucs has to step up and play better. And I don't expect Kirk Cousins to throw for 500 yards. I think the Bucs will have a better game plan for that to limit that. But yeah, it's going to be tough. But these are the two teams that are going to be battling it out. Because now, the Saints, after their hot start with all their injuries, they're not a part of the conversation right now. So it's going to come down to these two teams. And, it might take 8 or 9 wins to win this division. Because that's what it took last year. That's what it took the year before. The Bucs finished 8-9 with Tom Brady in his final year. They won the division. 9-8 is what won the division for the Bucs again last year. Might be what wins it again this year. I had the Falcons at 10-7 before the year started. So I think they should trade for Cooper Kupp. The Falcons. One of these two teams should. Why not? But we'll see. But yeah, this is a very important game. And yeah, I'm doing this preview now just because tomorrow will be my last show before I go on my little trip for the weekend. So that's kind of why we're previewing this game a little bit earlier. Tomorrow we're going to preview pretty much all the games going into the weekend. Of course, we have the game tomorrow night, so we'll preview that at the start. And yeah, so that's what's coming up between today and tomorrow. So, but yeah, looking forward to seeing what happens in this game. And for the Falcons, they're just looking to find that consistency. They just have been inconsistent this year, this offense. And Kirk Cousins is looking for that consistency because he has it. He had the good game against the Bucs, but it's just the turnovers. I don't know what happened in that game that he just was turning the ball over. So, and you see Drake London has benefited from having Kirk Cousins as his quarterback. Kyle Pitts has had some good games this year. The running game has been solid, but you want to see this passing game really get it going and maintain that for the rest of the year. And that really hasn't been the case. So, we'll see. And we still got some time before the trade deadline. So, is there going to be more trades on the way? We'll have to wait and see. But this is a very important game between these two teams. And could very well decide the division, depending on who wins. I mean, if the Falcons win, they're 2-0 against the Bucs this year. That's not good for the Bucs. So, this is a very important game. It's more important, I think, for the Bucs. So, and they're down their top two wideouts, so it's going to be tough. But let me know what you guys think about this game. Who do you think will win? Who do you think will win the NFC South? Let me know in the comments. So, before we go to break, I just want to remind you guys once again to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the Super Chat button to create a Super Chat of any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast. I will acknowledge it, and it just makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate your guys' viewership each and every day, so any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCpodcast.net. That is GSMCpodcast.net. So, when we come back from our next break, we will talk about Aaron Rodgers and some of the comments that he made after the Jets lost to the Steelers, how he still has confidence in the team, and he feels the Jets can still turn it around. So we'll get into all that. I'll give you my thoughts on it when we come back from our next break. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.